Hello and welcome to Maritime Murder, where we review and analyze murders on the high seas. Today, we will begin our season by reviewing the impact of true crime and true crime media. We will first review the negative aspects of true crime, and then we will talk with students and self-proclaimed professionals to understand the opposite side of the debate. One of the most prevalent issues when it comes to true crime media is the perception it gives viewers of the American criminal justice system. It can give them a false idea of how court processes are executed, and this can make a difference when it comes to the average American citizen serving on a jury. An even more common problem is the spread of anxiety from watching true crime shows. Research analysis was conducted by EP psychology student Lena McMillin to show that increased exposure to true crime leads to increased anxiety about crime. This means that more American citizens are now negatively affecting their own mental state and well-being by indulging in true crime media. On a related note, with this widespread increased anxiety and the false perception of the justice system, politicians are sometimes persuaded to use this to their advantage, which can involve intentionally encouraging the anxiety to foster political support for themselves. Although there are many negative consequences of true crime entertainment, there are also some considerable benefits to the genre, with one of them being that it funds my paycheck. To begin our discussion of true crime's benefits, we have Lena McMillin, an AP psychology student at White Station. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.
So you found out that true crime increases awareness of how people become victims of crime. Is that correct?
That's right. One of the main benefits of true crime is that it increases awareness of the situations where you can become a victim of crime. For example, being alone in a parking garage at night because you're watching real crimes.
What do people do with this awareness?
A lot of people have developed behaviors that can protect them from crime, like keeping windows shut at night or locking your car as soon as you get in it. We've also found that true crime fans tend to share these tips with each other within the fandoms, and given the popularity of true crime, this important information is being shared widely.
Are there any recent examples of this?
Yeah, actually. You probably heard of Gabby Petito. She went missing at the end of August while on a road trip with her fiancé, Brian Laundrie, and she was found dead by strangulation in mid-September. After she was reported missing, police reports showed that there had been a report of domestic violence between Petito and her fiancé. Many people have since shared the warning signs of domestic violence so that others can avoid the same fate as Gabby.
This was very informative. Thanks, Lena.
No problem. Thanks for inviting me on.
So, we've established that true crime helps people avoid crime. Now let's figure out why people watch true crime in the first place. Maritime Murder is grateful for our sponsors, including Viking River Cruises. Visit VikingRiverCruises.com to book your ocean escape. Use the code OceanMurder, all caps, for 10% off. Again, that's code OceanMurder, all caps. Next, we have Sofia Gosain, an expert on human behavior at White Station. She is here to present an interesting theory as to why true crime is beneficial. Hi, Sofia. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks. So, there's this thing called benign masochism, and I think it explains a lesser-known benefit to true crime. Basically, what it is that humans put themselves through pain that they know won't actually be painful.
Interesting. What exactly is this non-painful pain?
Well, there's things like riding a roller coaster, where it's super scary, but you know you won't actually fall off. There's also eating chili peppers, where you push your physical limits to endure this pain that, again, won't actually hurt you. But with true crime, you're able to expose yourself to extremely horrifying situations that deep down you know will never happen to you.
And what's the benefit of that?
Well, benign masochism and true crime actually allow for stress recalibration. Essentially what that is while you're consuming this internally challenging media, your prefrontal cortex takes the back seat because your body's focused on getting through this threat. So when you go to a haunted house, scary objects are jumping out at you left and right. And in this situation, you're not really thinking about the big meeting coming up at work or an exam you have next week. You're just trying to get through this threat to your system, and in doing so, you let go of a lot of stress and anxiety. And the same thing happens when you watch true crime. You're so freaked out by and caught up in all these gruesome murders that you're able to ignore a lot of what's weighing on you, and so true crime becomes really good for your mental health.
That's an incredibly new perspective on true crime. Thanks, Sophia. This podcast is sponsored by Alec Baldwin. Go see his latest movie, Rust, and learn about murder firsthand. Thanks for your support, Alec. Finally, we have Mr. Srijith, a self-proclaimed expert on the criminal justice system.
As my colleagues have previously stated, I think there are many benefits to listening to true crime podcasts.
How does true crime impact how the public understands the law?
It can help everyday people become aware of overlooked cases, which leads to prisoners securing retrials. For example, the show Making a Murderer was filmed over 13 years ago and tells the story of Stephen Avery. It led to retrials because of prosecutorial misconduct that was discovered after the trial, and it led to hundreds of thousands of people signing a petition which called for the White House to release Avery. A professor at the University of Utah even created a class based on the show to teach students about the criminal justice system.
So what does this reveal about the criminal justice system?
It shows how unfair the criminal justice system can be. True crime can highlight the economic inequalities, gender bias, and it can show that criminal justice system doesn't always produce the correct verdict.
What about bias within true crime podcasts?
While there is usually heavy bias towards the defendant in true crime podcasts, it doesn't mean that it's bad in any way. For example, in Making a Murder, where there's a heavy bias towards the innocence of Stephen Avery, the prosecutors agreed that key information was left out of the case that could potentially have changed the verdict.
Are there any instances in which a podcast has been instrumental in the way a case moved forward?
Yes, the podcast Serial led to the main character, Anand Syed, appealing his conviction. He was accused and convicted of murdering his girlfriend and was sent to prison for 30 years. Serial was downloaded by over 100 million people, which raised awareness for an otherwise overlooked case.
Thank you for your time, Mr. Srijith. So today, we learned that true crime podcasts allow the public to understand the criminal justice system, purge their emotions through benign masochism, and avoid violent crimes. Next week, we'll dive into the story of a happy honeymooner who met an unhappy end. Join us then to find out what happens.